Hello, this is Joe Peters with MomFit with Joe Peters. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network and the Her Network on Singo TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download the Singo TV app in the respective app stores, iOS and Android devices. While you are downloading, make sure that you rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Singo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and Roku Stick in all smartphones since 2016. Today, I am very excited on the conversation that we are going to have because I can see the difference. Like some of you don't know this, but I took my nephew 3 years ago in 2020. My nephew is 6 years old, and I can see the difference between them when I didn't know anything about gentle parenting and now what I'm doing with my son that is 15 months. And I have a very special place in my heart for Stacey. Stacey is a coach, a friend, a sister, a cheerleader. She's also a best-selling author and is a double certified coach. She created Happier by the Minute to break down the research and the rigor of positive psychology and conscious parenting into bite sizes morsels, easy to digest for busy, stressed parents like all of us mamas. Her motivational content begins with 1 minute video and grow into top rated happiness podcasts, masterclasses, workshops, private group coachings, and one-on-one coachings. She's also an international speaker and won several speaking engagements and challenges. She had published 3 international best-selling books, including Ignite Your Parenting. Stacey had over 20 years of personal improvement and child development experience, and she became the mom of a child with learning differences and ADHD. Because of that, she immersed herself even deeper into research and application. She had such a great success with her children that she knew she had to share the secret with other parents. With over 10,000 followers, she had positively impacted thousands of children from years of therapy later in life. How many of you guys sign up for that? I want to make sure that my child doesn't have to have therapy when he grows up. In 2020, her metamorphic journey through the career as an executive in a multi-million dollar business leave, and she decided to leave the Silicon Valley with her husband and her family, and they start living a dream of a full-time mom, part-time coach, as she and her husband Barry travel the world, school their 2 boys, the Shell 10 and Declan, and they are currently residing in Greece for now. I hope that she's coming on the States. So Stace, it's a pleasure to have you here. I am looking forward to go deeper into how these pregnant moms and moms of new babies can start learning a little bit about positive psychology and gentle parenting. Actually, I picked my t-shirt on purpose today. My t-shirt is one of the MomFit t-shirts that are available on Amazon, and it's parenting style survivalist. So as
I
we
love it.
feel that we are just surviving, it's important that we have some of the tools that Stacey is going to share with us. But Stacey, it's going to talk a little bit about you, a little bit about the story and your story with the shell, and then from there we will go into what are some of those practical things that we all can do to make sure that our kids don't go to therapy in 15 years.
They might go to therapy, but at least it won't cost them as much, maybe, because we won't have messed them up as much as we could have if we weren't thinking consciously. But, look, everybody's doing the best that they can with what they know. And the reality is that what we know, what we've been taught, what society is conditioning us, what we grew up with our own parents and grandparents is just outdated. And now there's so much research and science around conscious parenting and positive psychology that to show that it works. It works to decrease the stress immediately and helps them learn the skills to grow up and have healthy, successful, vibrant lives later.
And one thing that is interesting to me is, and that is why we need to start, in my opinion, because I love how you are saying that society is pushing a lot into how we should
Mhm.
be. And a lot of times when we hear, especially as first time moms, or because I don't think that it's only first time moms, first time mom because we don't know what we are doing, but also moms that maybe had another child, and then at that moment they didn't have the information that they have now, so with that child they did some things that now they are doing different, and then they have like this feedback and this questioning and this judgment from grandmothers, from other people in the family, from older people that are just saying, oh, you are spoiling your kid, you are making your kid a brat. So I think that the first thing that I want to talk with you
Yeah.
is that you share with these mamas that are trying to think how they can parent their child the best way, the most supportive way. The first thing is, what is gentle parenting and positive psychology, and what is not?
Yeah. So, I mean, Dr. Shafali Saberi is the one that came up with conscious parenting. And I think then there's a rift off of that with gentle parenting. And it all basically is that it is not punitive, it's not hierarchical, it's very much a partnership with your child. It is about really looking at yourself as a parent and what do we need to heal inside of ourselves, that we are reacting to our children, that really we're not even reacting to our child, we are reacting to our childhood, that their behavior is a trigger in us based on our own childhood and also based on our beliefs. Everything is about our beliefs. So example, one child can hit another child, a 4-year-old can hit another child, and most moms will be very triggered and, oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed that they're doing that. Why is he so naughty? And another mom who's studying conscious parenting, like me, is going to be, you know what? He is just 4. His prefrontal cortex is not even developed. He's, working out of a primal brain, and he doesn't know how to communicate whatever frustration and anger he has right now. So I'm not going to get as triggered. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to yell him. I'm not going to spank or give him a timeout. And timeouts are just so outdated because what your children need in the time of being really stressed out and tantruming or being angry is connection, not disconnection. And they just need the tools. And so if a child, a 4-year-old is hitting, it's just, wow, you know what? We're going to step away from this situation for a second. And I'm really going to tell you that, gosh, you are feeling some big feelings right now, but we don't hit. We don't hit on our family. I never hit you. I don't let anybody hit you. But what I need to do is help you learn the skill of communicating whatever you're feeling, which is, I'm angry. I want that toy. I'm tired. I want whatever it is that they're feeling. And so, but we have to stay present to teach them that skill. So, but I want to also really quickly say that I'm so excited that these are new moms, young moms, pre moms, because it's usually moms come to us when they are really in the heat and they've gone down this rabbit hole of just a loop of bad responses, or not bad, but ineffective responses to bad behavior. And it just gets out of control and they don't really seek help until they're out of control. And you can do so much before it gets to that point.
And you know me, I'm my engineer background. My mom works as an engineer, so MomFit is all about that. It's about preventive care, how we can prepare and prevent so that we don't have to react after the fact. How we can plan and
Yeah.
prepare. So absolutely, I agree with you. One of the things that, and listening to you, I was like a little ashamed. I was like, I'm gonna share because that is part of motherhood. This week, I was
Yes.
along with E, and he's discovering his voice. So there was a moment that he started screaming because he's not speaking much yet,
Yeah.
screaming, pointing me to the pantry, and it triggered me. And then I start raising my voice, telling him to not scream. And then, in the middle of me yelling him to stop yelling, I start laughing and said, like, this doesn't make any sense, baby. Mommy's yelling, telling you that it's not okay to yell. I'm sorry, I was in the red zone. Let's gonna try to understand what you are saying. But it was funny because how many times we go into that unconscious pattern of, and then when you stop, it's like very ridiculous, right? It's like I'm telling you to not yelling at you, or I'm
Yeah,
teaching you that it's not good to hit others by hitting you. So when we actually stop and think about it, we are like, well, that doesn't make any sense, right? So I just want to share that part of that
I
awareness
love
of
that.
all the work that I've been doing with you and learning from you. But I want to go deeper into understanding two things. The first one is why this is a positive decision and how this can impact the emotional and mental well-being of your kids in the long term. And then the second part is why when people quote mark title this approach as you will not have discipline, they will not know who is the authority, you are going to make little brats that don't respect anybody, how that is a opinion based on lack of understanding of what we are really doing. So let's gonna go first with the first one, that is why choosing this option is a good way to invest in the future of our children, and why this will give benefits long term to the family. Because
Yeah,
I think that one of the things that you said before is it's almost like pay me now or pay me later. So even when early on may seem
yeah,
that the parents that are hitting their kids and punishing their kids had a better behaved child than the one that we have, that we are trying to do this, I think that in the long term there are also other factors that balance out that
yeah.
make easier to make this choice depending on if align with our values.
So we are all living patterns. We are all living patterns that we started to create when we were a child. And we became, there's a lot of study on that we created an ego that we built to protect ourselves from being ourselves. So when we would be silly, or we would knock something over, or we would be wild and we would get hushed, or we would get smacked, or we would get yelled at, we created this ego of like, oh, don't be that. Don't be yourself. That gets in trouble. When all we were doing is just being kids. We were just being kids, and we were just expressing ourselves. And, even if you don't think of it as, even if it's naughty things, right? Where we were being disrespectful. Again, we were children just trying to figure out, wait, I have a voice. I want to say something about that. I don't like the way you're treating me. And then a parent will get very, it's very control and hierarchy based, and you need to respect me. When, wait, respect is something that we give mutually. Respect is something that we teach by giving respect, not by demanding respect. And so we created these personalities, and then we become parents, and we're just passing it down. This is just where it's a loop, and it's a generational loop that we just keep passing down. And so learning it early means that you're going to stop the pattern sooner. We know that yelling and shaming, it doesn't work. It works in the moment because it teaches a child to be afraid. It teaches a child to be quiet. It doesn't teach them any skill except the skill of, okay, I won't let them find out next time, or I won't talk back. But now you're teaching the child to just be compliant and to just do what other people tell them to do. And if you really think about it, that's not the child you want. You want the child that's creative and innovative and has a mind of its own and isn't going to let other people walk all over them. But we have to teach them how to be that person by teaching them the skills of how to communicate. And the only way we can do that is by connecting with them and giving them love and giving them kindness and giving them compassion. It doesn't work to the shame. And if you don't learn it early, you're just going to get in this cycle, and where you're both tantruming when you start tantruming, when the child starts tantruming, and now nobody's learning anything. And it's hard to get out of that cycle once you're in it.
I love that. And so for the moms moms to be, new moms that are um, considering this approach, because I know that is getting a lot more momentum. We are seeing a lot more um, exposure to this type of parenting. We actually are seeing it with even silly things as extended breastfeeding, where now we are getting back into moms being very proud breastfeeding their kids past 2 years, 3 years. So it's getting a lot more exposure. And then if there are some of these moms that are considering this, but either the other two things that we talked before, either they're first time moms and or they have another child that they were raising the other way, what are some of the things that they need to have clear when they start getting pressure from family and friends into trying to do it the traditional
Yeah.
way that we are being raising kids? Because, and I want to hear your opinion about this, but this drives me crazy when one of the biggest
Yeah.
statements is like, I spank you and you turn out well, or I
Yeah.
hit the daddy and he's completely fine, very successful. So what are some of the tools that these moms can have in their toolbox to be able to, in a respectful, kind, loving way, don't let those opinions and those statements make themselves guess their choice, and still make some healthy boundaries with the people around them of, yep, that's true, and
Yeah.
I am choosing this now.
Yeah, I mean, number one, you have to believe in it and trust that, that this child is a miraculous, amazing, evolved being that is here to become who they're meant to become. I mean, a really big part is the work we do on ourselves about our beliefs and our expectations. This is not wishy-washy parenting. This is not, when you stay calm, it feels like we're not doing anything because we're used to, doing something means you're powerful, you're strong, you have control. And really, sometimes the greatest thing you can do is be quiet because it's going to help co-regulate the child. It's not punitive. And I know I hear a lot of other people saying, they just need a good punishment. They need to, if they don't get a punishment, then they won't learn the lesson. Who says that we only learn lessons by being in pain? I mean, the last time you beat yourself up for eating something you weren't supposed to, how'd that work out for you? How did it really ever? Did you beat yourself up and then all of a sudden you're like, "Wow, that worked. I'm never going to eat that again." No, we're so misguided, and it's social conditioning and constructs that are telling us that we have to be punished and we have to punish for them to learn a lesson. It just is not true. And so you have to surround yourself with people. Well, you try to surround yourself with as many people that are like-minded, but then it's also the people who say this is not the healthy way, this is not the right way, you should just give them a timeout. We just have to really respectfully understand that they are still in that old frame of mind. They have those old beliefs. And I'm not here to change those people. Like, if they're ready and they're curious, I'm happy to educate them, but we can't change other people. We can only protect our children and err on the side of consciousness and just say, "Oh, that's your story. I don't raise my child that way." And I don't allow people to talk to my child that way. And I don't allow, I mean, and I definitely had somebody once in my family tell me, "You are a terrible parent." But number one, they have no children. Number two, they were an only child. Number three, they've done zero research and study on what is good parenting versus bad parenting, because he comes from a very, you should be yelling at them, you should be controlling, you should be dominating. And I just don't come from that way. And when he sees that my child has big reactions, he thinks that that's bad parenting because I'm not getting it under control, or he's allowed to, not sit at the dinner table because he's having big reactions. Well, I have different beliefs about whether sitting at the dinner table and what you're allowed to do when you're having big feelings and where you can go and what you can do. And I have different belief systems about sitting at the dinner table, and I have learned to question a lot the beliefs and the expectations about children, what they should and should not be doing. And that when you have that pause, it's so beautiful, your example, because you're able to stop yourself in the middle and say, wait, what am I doing? You know what? Mommy didn't do that right this month. Let's just rewind, restart. Let's do this again. And it's not about being a perfect mom, because when I say that I do conscious parent coaching, I want to make sure people don't project onto me that somehow I'm a perfect mom and I have perfect children. We don't have a lot of conflict, but it doesn't mean that my kids aren't, misbehaving sometimes, or that I don't lose my shit sometimes, or that I don't get frustrated, or that I'm not tired, or that I'm not mean sometimes. But, it's about being conscious, recovering and repairing. And that's what we teach. I told that was like such a long answer. I don't even know if I answered the original question.
Absolutely. But actually, I was seeing on a video of a speaker that was talking about that and saying, when I, for any reason, get triggered and yell my kids, and I find out that I'm yelling, the first thing that I do is I go into my knee to get eye level and say, honey,
Hmm.
I'm so sorry. I was yelling. That's not good. Please forgive me. And then the beautiful thing that he said that, and I saw it with Elliot, even when Elliot didn't reply back to me, is kids are like, okay, because they're in that moment like, okay, so what we are teaching them is mommy can also be wrong. And then not only what we didn't did right, but also that we love them enough to come back and say, hey, I'm sorry, this was not good. One thing that I want to talk with you about is, what are some of those small practices that moms to be and new moms can start doing since the baby's in the belly, or even in the first 12-18 months of the baby, of what are some of those little activities, because we know that a baby is not going to get back to you, is not going to interact much verbally, but still we also know that, like everything else, that is a muscle that we need to exercise, and as more we exercise
Exactly.
it, as easier it's going to come later on when our kids start growing up. So what are some of those consciousness moments or those activities that we can implement right away? Doesn't matter if our baby is 3 months old or 18 months old or 5 years old or 10 years
Yeah.
old, like Dash.
So I studied um, neurobiology with Dr. Shanker, and he wrote a book called Self Reg, which is really, really valuable, because even the minute they're born, we are co regulating for them. They're watching us to see how to self regulate, which is one of the most important skills we can teach our children, which means we need to know it ourselves, right? And you were a perfect example of self regulation. Like, I'm starting to get into the red zone. Hold on, take a breath, pause, breathe into the moment, and I can bring myself back down. That's exactly what we want to teach our kids. And so, what you could be doing, what is the most important thing, is starting to know what your triggers are, starting to look inside yourself. What are the triggers? Where do you get the most angry? Even if it's traffic, if it's the news, if it's with your spouse, or if it's with your mother-in-law, or if it's, where are you triggered, and start to challenge yourself on, I am triggered because, and that triggers me because, I'm triggered because I hate when people are stupid driving around me. Okay. And that triggers me because I don't like stupid people. And that triggers me because they get in my way. And that triggers me because I'm not going to be able to do what I want to do. You know what I mean? You just keep asking yourself until you really get to the core of it, because you're going to need that skill of slowing down and asking yourself, why am I so triggered when they get to be 3 and 4 and 5? And the things to do now is really just understanding the development of kids and their brain, and knowing they're going to have big feelings. I have to build up my patience. I need to build up my own battery. I need to build up my knowledge of what's, healthy and what isn't healthy. And then I need to be able to know that everything, any misbehavior is just miscommunication. And what are the things I want to teach them? Know now, what are your values? What's your North Star? In our house, it's be kind. If anything happens, we always defer back to, was it kind? Was it kind? Was it kind? And we just start ingraining that really early on. And that means I need to embody being kind. My husband, and we're kind outside of the house and to other people. So, and to really start questioning your beliefs, and reading a book like The Conscious Parent, because it just takes you to another level,
And one thing there is how valuable is to start learning these things and start preparing in a preventive way before we have the issue. Because I hear a few weeks ago somebody saying like, well, but I don't know if my child will have these big emotions. I don't know, because there is also different personalities, right? So there will be some children that are just very mellow, very chill, very relaxed. Like there are children that sleep 8 hours at night since they are 3 months old, and there are children like
Yeah.
mine that still wake up 2 3 times in the night. But how learning these skills and start practicing these skills will help moms without matter if their child is a lot more sensitive to emotions and reactions than not.
I think that the most important thing that you can do is, if you start questioning your beliefs and your expectations, just right now, what are your beliefs and expectations? If you just did a list about what children should do around, what are your beliefs about success, happiness, being good, education, um, things being hard, sadness, if you have that awareness, because you might be, I hear a lot of parents who are like, my child is just not happy enough. They're not expressing that they're happy enough, and they're very quiet. Whether they're sad, whether they're hyper, whether they're aggressive, whether they're quiet, you have a belief about any one of those things. So have an awareness of that. And then, where did that belief come from? And is that belief that it is good, or is it bad? So, they might be quiet, and some parents might think that that's bad, or, some parents, yes, if they sleep through the night, that's good. I don't know if it's good. Did they get sleep trained? Did that child learn that it's not okay to ask for help in the middle of the night? I don't, there's so many different things. There may be a child who, doesn't come home and doesn't say that something's wrong at school and doesn't act out, and you don't know that there's something happening at school. There may be, and so the whole point is to break yourself open enough that however your child shows up is neither good nor bad. It just is. And that we aren't parenting from our past or our future, which is usually a fear of the future. Well, if they're not respectful, then they won't do well. If they don't read by this age, then they're not going to be successful. You know what I mean? There's so many different beliefs that we have that set us up for starting to believe what our children should and should not be doing, and how far they should be, and what their behavior should look like. So if you just start breaking apart these shoulds and start reading, don't be reading about, I don't know. This is the time, where if you just traded out half an hour of social media for some reading and getting some awareness about the development of children and your own beliefs. There's another great book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, which I think every human on this planet should read, and really understanding the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. Like, So that's, it doesn't matter what type of child you have. It's preparing yourself to be okay and to be ready and to be there and to be present for however they show up.
And I love that because for the moms that are listening that are pregnant or in the first 18 months, that is a great exercise. Is this weekend take some time with a piece of paper, with a notebook, and start just putting some of your personal beliefs, like how I'm expecting my child to be. Like I'm expecting my child to be respectful. What that means, successful. What that means, ahead of everybody else in their milestones. Because then that will be giving us a start point into after the fact. Because what Stacey was saying that it was hitting me as she was talking was, and she started with this, the episode 2 is not the child who is triggering us, is our childhood, is how that little soul is reflecting back. So at the end, is the well behaved is not that he's not well behaved, is that he's not behaving under the parameters and boxes that we define that is well behaved. Because what means well behaved for me may not mean the same for Stay. So if we have exactly the same child, I can feel that he's not behaving right because he's not under my well behaved box.
Mhm.
But if he goes to Stay's house, Stay's like, oh my God, you are a sunshine. So I love that. And I will
Mhm.
invite all of you to do that and start creating that list. One of the things that triggered me, and I want to hear your opinion, Stace, and I think that this was more like from a fear perspective with E, that you know that E is being exposed to 3 languages. So he's exposed to Spanish, English, sign language. And at 50 months old, he doesn't talk much. Like he just say maybe a couple of sounds, wow wow, cat, like very few ones. Oh oh. And I've been finding myself worry about it. And even to the point that I completely don't compare them, but almost like start thinking if I need to be worried about him when I hear other 15 months old babies that are like, oh, he says 100 words. And I'm like, holy cow. So, how we can start using that gentle parenting into that kind of things also of being aware what trigger us, but also honoring our own child's journey without going rogue into there are also things that are red flags that we need to look. And we are not telling any parent to just ignore all the red flags and let your child be 3 years old and don't speak, but how we can have that balance between knowing what the red flags are and maybe ask for a second opinion, a third opinion, or consult with an expert about those red flags, and at the same time being in being a presence that supports and encourages that own journey of that child versus start comparing it. Like you will not believe with the case with the wordings, with the words, with the speak, you will not believe how many moms in some of my groups, just because that comparison, choose to start doing a lot more of a screen time to put their kids in front of the TV to see some educational programs, just that they can catch up with the other kids that are doing 100 words. So that's gonna unpeel a little bit of that.
Don't compare, number one. Like, don't compare. I mean, these comparison charts are so damaging. And, yes, you can look for markers. And my child didn't speak till late. Einstein didn't speak, I think, until he was like 5 or 7 or something crazy. So, it's not necessarily, again, that it's good or bad. And, I think having I just think milestones are very dangerous. They're very dangerous because, what are they there for? They're mostly there for school. And will they be ready for school? Can they, they need to be in diapers so that they can go to that preschool, and they can need to learn how to read so they can go into first grade. And, we work ourselves into a frenzy because of all of these standards set by other people hundreds of years ago that are, maybe turn out to be completely irrelevant. And so, yes, you have a doctor that you trust, and, you can do things. But again, you can either meet it with panic and fear and, oh my God, what's going to happen to my child? And they're never going to be able to live a normal, happy life. Or you meet it with, okay, this is where we're at. This is interesting. Let's do some more reading, or let's do some exercises, or let's see if you need more. Or less of something. But children, just, they are going to respond to our response, and they're going to remember how we made them feel more than any of the problems that they occur. And so much of it is based on our expectations that they should be reading or walking or talking or doing so much by this time. And what if they don't speak, 500 words by the time they're 15 months? Okay. What if they don't ever speak 500 words? Okay, then what? So it's the panic in ourselves of what that means, and that's bad. And, it's just how you meet it. So, with something else I wanted to circle back, and I don't remember why, but, without knowing these things, that the damage that we can do with our expectations is far greater than, let me give you an example. I had one mom who said, she went to the store, it was late in the evening, and her son ran out the door. He was like maybe 4 years old, and he ran out the door, and she grabbed him, and then she spanked. He went in the bathroom, pulled his pants down, spanked him. And I said, and she felt horrible about it, very guilty. And, some of it was the shame that she couldn't control her child. Other parents were watching and felt like I needed to do something. And I said, look, our expectations that children, it was probably at the end of the day after he'd had a really long day at school. He's had all kinds of different stressors, biological, cognitive, emotional stressors. Now he's got to go to the grocery store, and he's got to sit there, and he's got to wait while she's doing all the checkout and all this. And I said, why not just give him your phone for the 10 minutes when, and this is going to cause people they're going to get very excited about, the technology. Don't give him the phone. But you can't give him more than they can handle without some way of being able to handle it. So to just have the expectation that they should be able to handle it because this is what I have to do, I got to go to the store and I got to check out, isn't fair to the child. And then to smack them because they couldn't handle it. So what do we do? And I'm saying, if you gave him a little educational thing on your phone, some Sesame Street for the 10 minutes you're checking out, that is far less damage than the damage of him running out the store, getting spanked, being yelled at, and feeling like, what the hell? What did I do? I just saw something that was really exciting and I ran after it, and I'm really bored and I'm tired and I can't think straight. I don't have a full brain telling me, if you run out the store right now, your mother's going to get very angry at you, and you probably shouldn't. So you should stay right here and just be super happy that you're tired and hungry and bored. It just isn't going to happen. So, again, these expectations, we put a lot of them, and we put a lot of expectations on them about, honestly, we want them to be, and then there's all the expectations about, whether we want them to be successful and make a lot of money, and we want them to, play the piano and speak 5 languages, and we want them to do all of this stuff. We want them to be better versions of who we never were. And that was a big aha for me, because I keep thinking, I think I would have been happier if I could have spoken 5 languages and played the piano and, did all that. And so I'm projecting that onto my child who may not want to do all those things. Um, so really just about those expectations, about what it is that you think they should be doing. And it's not bad to teach them multiple languages and have fun with it. But it becomes an issue as they get older, and they say they want to do things and don't want to do things. And then you get into the whole debate of whether you force them to do things and finish things that they signed up for. So we'll save that for another call.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with that gentle parenting, then because I know that interesting, you were saying that there is more like a teamwork and there is not much hierarchy, and that is one of the reasons why the punishment and the hitting is not supported, because it's under the conception that you will not hit your partner if your partner did something wrong. You will not hit your mother, so because you see them as peers, as a teamwork. But then, what how we know in this approach that we are making progress, that they are actually getting the skill set that they are learning, that they are actually grasping the concepts and the values that we are trying to implement and to share.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to exhibit them, right? They're going to be able to communicate better, but don't have that expectation of a 2.5-year-old, right? They're not going to be able to communicate that they're angry yet, and until they have more verbal skills and more cognitive skills. And it's just, we're going to keep repeating it and we're going to keep showing it, but they're not going to melt down as much. It's not going to spiral out of control. And you're going to know because then you're not spiraling out of control. And so it really is just this going down these two different paths, this path of, I'm your spiritual guide, I'm here to help you, I'm going to help teach you the skills, and the stop doing what you're doing, you're misbehaving, that's not okay, I'm going to yell at you so that you stop yelling. um, and it takes a lot more work than people think. When parents who come to me and they have like 3 young boys that are fighting with each other all the time, it takes a lot of work to teach them the skill of being able to sit next to each other without beating up each other, because it's just what their primal instinct is. So for a couple of years, I don't mean minutes, you're not on your iPhone, you're not scrolling through Facebook, you're sitting with them. And when they start to wrestle, hey, I'm just letting you know, keep an eye on what your brother's, he doesn't really look like he likes that. Oh, wow, Declan, you're really laughing a lot. You're enjoying it. And then all of a sudden, Declan's crying. Wait a minute. Gosh, Declan, it's really hard to know when you're having fun. And then the next minute, you're crying. So you're unraveling all of it at all that time, because you're kind of being their conscience. Like, you're stepping in where they don't have those cognitive skills. You're stepping in to say, he's said stop a few times and you haven't stopped. What is it that makes you keep going? And how come it's hard for you to hear them say stop? And Declan, what can you do if you keep saying stop and your brother doesn't stop? You're seriously giving them this play by play, and it's a lot of work and it's exhausting. But it's working because it's just not a lot of drama in your house and a lot of stress. And you're not getting calls from school, and you're not getting calls from play dates, and you're not fighting all the time, and it's not the conflict. It's a partnership, it's not a conflict. That's how you know.
Thank you for that. And with that being said, how, because I agree with you, it's a lot of work, and especially early on when moms are also sleep deprived and all the other things, how can moms balance having the energy to do that extra work, because it requires work, and it's not only about parenting. Like, if any of you are into self-development, like yoga, like the process of being mindful and present is exhausting, because our brain is all the time trying to take us into autopilot, because autopilot burn less calories. So it's exhausting how these moms can balance that exhaustion with also ways to refill their tank, to have the energy to invest on those critical moments of raising their children.
This is where I'm so grateful that I also studied positive psychology, because there's so many tools that you can use. So optimism is something that can be learned, right? So if you're a pessimistic person and you're always grumpy and you're always finding what's wrong with something, that's going to drain your battery much more than than if you try to just see what's good. The news you're doing, what are the things that you are doing that are draining your battery? Watching the news is draining your battery. Being on social media all the time, comparing yourself, draining your battery. Are you working smarter or harder? Are you surrounded by people, friends that bring you down? Are you doing a lot of negative habits, eating or drinking unhealthy things that are draining your battery? So the reality is it's so 360 degrees of how you take care of yourself is how you will take care of your children.
I love that. Um, so we are incredibly getting close to the end of the show. So before we start closing up, I want to ask you two things. The first one is, can you give from your wisdom and your passion into this conscious parenting and positive psychology one advice to all these moms to be a new mom that are trying to learn about this? And then the second one is for the ones that fall in love with you and want to hear more about you and learn more about you, how they can reach out to you.
Oh, sure. So, first of all, I think the one thing that you can do is give yourself a pat on the back for showing up today, because this means that you want to become aware, you want to up level, you want to listen and be a better parent. That means you are on the path. Keep following that scent. Keep learning, keep growing, keep trying, keep questioning in your fantasy about what parenting is supposed to look like and what your children are supposed to look like. Keep questioning, keep growing, keep learning, and just keep finding all the magic in your child and tell them every day 10 times more than you discipline them or tell them what's wrong with them. Tell them what's right with them. 10 to 1. And where can you find me? So I'm at happierbytheminute.com. On Instagram, I am conscious parenting ADHD, and Facebook, Happier by the Minute. So you can reach me there. And I do a lot of coaching and courses for conscious parenting ADHD. So if you start recognizing it, that your child is very impulsive and reactive, it's just a label. It means nothing. It just is going to help to think about how you're going to respond to that child.
Thank you so much, Stacey. It's always been a pleasure to have you here and to be able to learn from you and see another option, right? Because a lot of times we just go into the world not knowing better, but as more we get exposed to other approaches like conscious parenting, like positive psychology, as more we are able to have tools to say, okay, how I was raised is not the only way. I can choose, like you were saying, to stop the pattern, to cut the pattern, and to
Yeah.
provide to my children something different, something, I'm not saying better or worse, but something that is more aligned with how I feel. Because on that one, like, I don't know if any of you, but I know when I did it with my nephew, like those times that I thought that the right thing was punishment, it feel so bad on my heart, on me. So having that trust of trusting our instinct and saying um if is not feeling good, then it's a reason, and there is always another way. There is always another mechanism to actually support and help us. So thank you so much for that, Stace.
Always fun.
Episode full of wisdom and golden. And all of you know, if you need to reach out to her to pick her brain, Happier by the Minute. She had actually a couple of very amazing courses starting out soon about conscious parenting. And this show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and leave it.
Gracias.